Hi there, my name's Warren Poll and welcome to another episode of the 33 vlog. Now because you are getting this on the vlog, I have to excuse my scruffy appearance, and all you can really thank yourselves for is that you can't actually smell anything through this screen right now. For anyone else out there who is juggling their busy work life with their busy training life, you may understand why I'm still stood here in my running kit. Anyway, look, I shall get on to the point of this because I'd love to introduce this show coming up with Luke Tyburski. Luke is someone who myself and Erica and 33 as a company, we've known him for years. He's an incredible endurance athlete. He's someone who truly pushes the boundaries of what is physically and mentally possible. And he really is what I've honestly, in a career formerly as a professional journalist dealing with a lot of sport, and subsequently in the last decade working in the endurance sport arena and the nutrition side of things as we built 33, I've never seen an athlete who has been able to push himself so far beyond that point where the mind says stop. Now, we're not saying this is healthy or not, and that's something that will come up in the show, but it's this that Luke and I begin to dig into in this show, because Luke's experience of taking himself to the brink, formerly as a professional football player and now as a professional endurance athlete, taking on the most insane challenges he can find. As an example, by the way, this is a guy whose first ever triathlon was a double Ironman. He's not someone to take things lightly, but the lessons he's learned by going way big, sometimes too early, sometimes at the right time, the lessons he's learned from that and the way he's been able to accelerate that knowledge over the course of the last 5-10 years is incredible. But what Luke really has is a gift for sharing the lessons that he's learned to push his own performance and bring them out to everyone else, whether it's you want to improve performance in life, performance in health, or performance in sport. Because frankly, that is exactly our mission at 33. It's giving as many athletes as possible all the tools that they need to raise their game in every point of their life and their sport. And we do that by sharing great content and conversations like this. And we also do it in store with our incredible natural sports nutrition at 33shape.com. So anyway, look, enough of my intro. Let's get on with this conversation with Luke Tyburski. Luke, thank you for making the epic trek all the way out of West London into Northwest London. And also a big thank you for bringing that spare bike box with you as well.
No worries, mate. Always a pleasure to sit down and chat with you. And finally, we get to record our chat so we can share it with other people, because we dive into some pretty epic topics, and I think that's what we're going to do today.
I think you've said it very well. I mean, for those of you who don't know, Luke, myself, and also Luke and 33 Shape, we all go back a long way together. You've been around since the beginning. We were introduced through a good mutual friend, James Dunn of Kinetic Revolution. Big shout out to him. And by the way, if you do have any running injuries, then go and see James, or at least check out his website. If the answer's not there, it probably doesn't exist. He introduced us, and I think it's fair to say that both of us thought, well, you know, James has worked out that you're into nutrition and I was into nutrition. We're both into endurance sports, so hey, we should get on. And I think both of us thought, what is the point of this phone call? And we had this phone call, and I'm so glad that we did, because that has turned into something that's been a great adventure and has become a very close friendship through some crazy experiences, a number of those which we may touch upon, driven by yourself. Some beautiful experiences, your wedding, for example.
There we go.
Your beautiful wife, Vanda. We've all had a lot of fun. So look, let's get into this. Rather than me spraff on about random bits of your background, why don't you just give people a little bit of a lowdown on what it is you do, what it is you're about.
What do I do? That's always an interesting question. I don't know if we've got that much time, but no. So whenever anyone asks me this question, I always say that I help people, I facilitate people to open up their own minds so that they can begin to believe that they're capable of so much more. Right? I feel that's what I do. Okay, and that sounds so fluffy. I get that, right? We're going to get there. But I feel that's what I do. How I do that is through doing massive, big, ultra endurance challenges. So I show people that I can actually do this and that we can push ourselves further than we previously thought. But then also I share my stories with people on stage. I'm a professional speaker. I speak all around the world. And I also share my thoughts on mindset and the principles and the processes that I go through that help me to keep pushing forward. to keep achieving more than I initially thought, pushing myself past my comfort zone. I'm an author these days. I always forget that. Always got to remember that I'm an author. I wrote a book called Chasing Extreme. It's my autobiography. It's very real, very open. I'm extremely vulnerable in that. So if you want to hear personal...
It is a very good read, that. And I think what you did with that, there's probably the subject of another podcast, but there are quite a few people out there pushing themselves and breaking down boundaries and doing physical challenges. It's become a more popular thing. There's quite a lot of books out there, but there's quite a lot of fluffy stuff out there. There's quite a lot of, it was really hard, drilling down into the psyche of what drives you, what it's about, the times when you really break yourself down mentally and physically. I think you show probably the most true picture I've seen of what real physical achievement and really pushing those boundaries can take. At the elite level, you've got books that will tell you about the achievement, but maybe they don't break down what's really behind it. Maybe Andre Agassi's book, Open, is one of the closest ones.
I agree.
I'll put yours up there with that.
Appreciate that. So I do these big challenges, and I look at those as the institution where I go to learn. Okay, so I go and learn about myself doing these big physical challenges, and then when I extract that knowledge of how I'm able to push myself, I then use that knowledge in my speaking business, how I can grow that. Okay, as a writer now, I'm writing my second book. I've got 2 or 3 or 4, too many more ideas, but there's definitely more books that are going to come out. So I use these processes and the principles that I've extracted from pushing myself physically and mentally to then try and evolve myself as an individual, and then evolve my business as a speaker, and as an author, and also a coach. I coach people, runners, triathletes, write their training plans, but also on mindset, on mental strength. I have one-to-one discussions with people, and I help them create tools for themselves. Like, I can give them a template, a plan of the tool that I use, but then it's up to them to go and use that in their own way that's going to help them achieve their goals.
And it's not just athletes, is it? I mean, because also business people, investors, people like that. You're working with mindset, people who really are, in taking big financial decisions in business, and let's not call it a gamble, but they're putting themselves at a risk of some loss. Yeah, and there's mindset to be held in there.
There is. One of the biggest industries that I work in, we were speaking about this off air, is the property investing area. And I work with a lot of property investors all over the world, and giving them the tools that I've learned when I do these physical challenges. And it's about these 3 things. Okay, there's 3 things that I'm really good at. Okay, and I don't think I've ever had this discussion with you before, so this is really interesting. There's 3 things that I'm really good at. It's not swimming, cycling, and running.
I'm glad. We'll come to that in a bit. We'll have a good laugh about that. But so let's just hold it over. Luke talks about big challenges. I'm just going to say it's big with a capital B. We'll break down one of them in a little bit, but carry on.
Yeah. So there's 3 things that I'm really good at. Okay, it's overcoming obstacles, adapting to setbacks, and then seeing opportunities where others don't. So what I do, to go back to answer your question in a more succinct way, what I do is I share the knowledge that life has taught me with as many people across all industries, however I can, through writing, through being an author, through podcasts, through standing on stage, through courses, through one-on-one coaching, through workshops. I share the knowledge I've gained through my life. That's going to help people overcome obstacles, adapt to setbacks, and see opportunities where they never used to, but where also others don't. So that helps business, entrepreneurs, athletes, however you look at it. That's what I do.
And you're doing it pretty well.
I'm always learning.
We're all a constant work in progress. But I said we'd look at big challenges. The crucible of fire that really bonded our friendship, and it was a unique experience in many and every way, was the ultimate triathlon. which was a challenge devised by yourself. And just explain a little bit about what the Ultimate Triathlon was, the distances, the timings.
Yeah, I got to take a breath with that one. Sounded like a good idea at the time, you know. So the Ultimate Triathlon was a 2,000 kilometre in 12 days swim, cycle, and run from the northern tip of Morocco over to Spain across the Gibraltar Strait, along the southeast coast of Spain to the Spanish-French border, and then from there to Monaco. So swim the Gibraltar Strait.
Which is how long?
It's about 15 miles, so 24, 25 kilometres.
Okay, so your first triathlon leg is a
Big
fairly
swim.
lumpy sea swim. That's before we put in the currents.
Yep, and then the cycle is from Tarifa, where our base was, and it's as long as literally as much as we could along the southeast coast of Spain.
Yeah, length of that southeast coast until you cross the Pyrenees into France, where swap bike for trainers.
Yeah, so that bike leg is about the equivalent of the UK, so the equivalent of the John O'Groats to Land's End, about 1,300 kilometres, and the plan was 4.5 days. Sounded like a good idea at the time. And then get on the trainers, and the equivalent of 14 marathons running from the Spanish-French border to Monaco in 7 days.
So double marathon a day off the back of your giant sea swim, and you're cycling the length of the UK in
all in 12 days.
A total of 12 days.
Never been done before. No one had ever done a route like this before, and from what I had seen, no one had ever done a point-to-point triathlon anywhere near the equivalent to these lengths. So it's similar to like a Deca Ironman, where you can do a continuous Deca, where you do...
Which, for anyone who's not familiar with that is 10 Ironman triathlons.
But continuous, so you do the swim. Swim's 2.4 miles, 3.8 kilometres. So you do 38 kilometres, and then you start the bike leg. But there's 38 kilometres, pretty much every Deca I've seen is in a pool, or it's in a lake, so it's laps. So it's not point to point. And then you jump on the bike, and the bike's 182 kilometres, so you do 1,800 kilometres. But from what I've seen, there's no Deca that does point to point. It's all loops. So I couldn't go and talk to people about logistics, about how to create this a challenge that I'm going to do, because I did it myself, because no one had done anything in this format before.
There was no blueprint, and you had to forge that as you went. Now, if you want to see the full story of how this went, there is a documentary. The Ultimate Triathlon documentary. I've certainly seen it it's on Amazon Prime. Is it on Netflix as well?
It's not on Netflix, it's on Amazon Prime. That's the best place to go and see it. If you do have Prime, it's free. If you don't, it's a couple of bucks to rent it.
Yeah. Now that will show you what went on here. Let's just say that, unsurprisingly, breaking new ground, taking on huge distances, with a skeleton crew. I was crew chief.
You were?
And driver and navigator and
hotel booker
and hotel booker. No,
See, the other thing I do want to point out before we move on, because I know you want to get onto a very awesome topic that we're going to discuss, but I think this can feed into it, is one of the things that no one had ever done before was doing an open water swim and then a big triathlon. Okay, now the difficult thing, one of the main difficult things for this was, from a logistics standpoint, is what people don't understand. When you do an open water swim,
you mean as in a big sea swim?
Yeah,
a
big sea swim or a crossing. You don't say, I'm going to start on Tuesday. Okay, I book it for Tuesday, because the weather could be crappy. You get a window. I think we got a week window. I think we went on the second last day.
Yeah, so this is for the swim from Morocco over to Spain.
Yeah. Which
and you're right, because the conditions aren't. It's not like you're just going to go, right, get in the water and go, because the tide might be going the wrong way, the conditions might be going the wrong way, it might be too rough for the sport boat.
It was windy, it was horrible for several days. And people go, well, that's fine, you just wait till it's good. Well, when you're doing a challenge, it's point to point, and you have such a small crew, you can't book accommodation. So I couldn't...
Well, we didn't even know where we were going to finish on. I mean, we had a rough idea where we'd finish on each day.
But we didn't know the days we were going to start.
No, we didn't know the start
so
until it began.
We started on a day that we found out 12 hours before we started. So we couldn't book accommodation for days 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 until we knew when it was starting. So the logistics were a nightmare, which you did an amazing job because you booked all that.
And Erica and Amanda and
everyone
Jay as well.
jumped in. So so it was a logistical nightmare, and I'm going to come back to that when we move forward in this conversation. I'm going to refer to that in a second, but I wanted to give people context because there's a really good opportunity for me to show what I did in that moment for what we're going to talk about now.
Okay, because this is the bit I wanted to get to is for anyone who's familiar with the work of Professor Tim Noakes. He's known for a number of things. He's known for being a popular figure within the sort of Banting or ketogenic diet space. He's based out there in South Africa. He's also known for he wrote a book called The Law of Running, which is one of the original literal Bibles of running. When it comes to exercise, science, nutrition and performance, he has literally been there, done it and read the book. And he polarizes opinion in some spaces. He's certainly, he's not afraid to say of his own work, no, I don't agree with what I said back then now because I've seen new research or done new research that leads me to change my beliefs, which I think is a very smart way to work. You don't have to hold dogmatically to a belief if you come across evidence that you find there's something better. But one of his concepts that he came up with was the idea of the central governor theory, in that we all have inside us some kind of limiter where the body will try and slow us down or stop us in an endurance effort or a speed effort. The body will say enough, and this is the body just really going into a survival mode. Don't go any further because you're going to blow yourself up. So the central governor is going to kick in. That's the thing telling you to stop. Now, there then comes the point, how far can you override this? Now, the central governor theory will go into that because clearly if you want to succeed in a marathon, in a distance event, in a sprint, you're going to have to ask your body to do stuff that at times it's going to be telling you not to. And I think experience over time teaches you maybe when to listen more, maybe when to ignore it. You'll probably run yourself into injury a few times along the way or whatever it is. But the reason I wanted to talk about this with you is that in all of my experience of endurance sport or even professional sport in the years I was a journalist or whatever it was, I have never seen anyone override their central governor to the degree that I saw you do it every day on the Ultimate Triathlon. Just keep going, to the point where you would say, well, I'm just going to go at times until I'm unconscious. Like the central governor is like, I'm going to ignore the central governor. That's been going off all day. That warning alarm has been going off all day. I'm going to ignore that, but when I'm unconscious, then pick me up and we'll start the next thing, or get me ready for the next day. So, to throw it over to you, what are your thoughts on that, and what is your takeaway looking back on that? How far can and should people go? Because I think so many people artificially restrict themselves, but then where do you draw the line between carrying on, or to quote Jens Voigt, the famous Grand Tour rider, shut up legs?
Shut up legs.
Where do you draw that line, and then where do you tip into overtraining or long-term injury, or can we all or do we all have this unlimited potential? So there's a lot of threads in there, but I want to put it over to you because, like I said, you were the one on the sharp end doing that, and I've never seen anyone take it further.
Was there a question in there?
I think so.
So, where do I start? As you said, there's a lot of threads to pull. So, first and foremost, I want to say that if you've seen the Ultimate Triathlon documentary, okay, what I did wasn't healthy. Bottom line, would I recommend that to anyone? No. Okay, little mini disclaimer here, and the advice that I give and the thoughts that I'm going to share with you is not saying that that's what you should do. That is what you should go out and strive to and try to achieve. Definitely not. It wasn't unhealthy. I've learnt a hell of a lot from it.
But just on the subject of unhealthy, maybe we'll drop that in later. I'm sure that'll be a part of it because it came at a physical and mental price for a time.
Huge. So in terms of answering your question,
my ramble.
Yeah, I think we are. As I said, like what I do for a living is I help people open up their minds and make them believe that they're capable of so much more. It's like when you see people, I'm not a runner, okay? But then they do a park run and they do park runs for a period of time, they train, they prepare, they gain experience, they gain knowledge from doing those park runs every week. Okay, they're in a community
Of runners.
of people who are supportive. And then all of a sudden they wonder if I can do a 10K. And then they do a 10K. And then that person who never called themselves a runner does a 5K, then a 10K, then a half marathon. And then the crazy thing they do is they sign up to a marathon. Okay? Now, we could go onto the street out here in London and grab someone and say, you have to run a marathon tomorrow. And 99.9% of the public could do a marathon. Okay? Put a gun to their head, they could do a marathon, right? What stops people is this. Okay? What stops people from...
For anyone listening to this without the images, Luke was pointing at his head.
Sorry.
It doesn't mean his
head.
hat. The brain stops you.
What
right?
stops people is their brain, okay? And what they perceive as they can do. They say, I can't run a marathon, okay? Like that person, I'm not a runner. I could never do that. It's not the fact that they can't do it. It's the fact that they're not willing to learn how and put in the effort to give themselves a chance to be successful. So that's step one. You have to remove the fact that you can't. Now there are things that we can't do. I can't run a sub 10 second 100 meters. Physiologically, it's not going to happen. I don't think I've ever ran under 14 seconds. I'm 36. I'm getting older. I'm getting slower. It's not going to happen. I get that. I can say I can't do that. All right? But if you're not putting a time on it, for someone to say, I can't run a fast 100 meters, well, define fast. So my whole point is we need to change the way that we view what we want to achieve. Instead of saying, or what we could achieve, I should say, instead of saying I can't, reframe it. Okay? If you start thinking this way, you will begin to see opportunities that you never saw before. Instead of saying, I can't do that, I could never do that, be honest with yourself. Say, I'm not willing to put in the time to learn how and the effort to give myself a chance to be successful. So that's where it begins, right? Reframing that. And it's about changing your attitude. All right? For me, when it comes to changing your attitude, it's down to two things. Focusing on what you can control and forgetting everything else. All right? Forgetting everything else. Controlling your attitude is focusing on what you can control and forgetting everything else. So if you reframe the whole conversation around I can't do something, it's impossible, I could never do that to start with, to be honest with yourself and saying, I'm not willing to learn how, I'll spend the time to do it. And then, secondly...
Or even not willing, it could even be, I'm not interested. Ultimately, deep down, people may feel they have to do that. I need to earn £1 million, or I have to run a marathon. Well, if ultimately whatever that thing is, even if everyone else sort of leads you to believe you should want it, if you don't want it, don't go for it.
So here's a sporting example for you. After I did the ultimate triathlon and I swam the Gibraltar Strait, I was at a party and someone asked me, heard about this big thing, and he said to me, do you think you could swim the English Channel? And without even blinking, I said confidently, I know I can. And he's like, well, why don't you do it? And I said, I know how. My wife swam the channel twice. I've got a dozen friends who have swum the English Channel. So I didn't say I can't. I said I know I can. But my follow-up, when he said, why don't you do it? It's not the fact that I'm not willing to learn how. I know how. I'm not willing to give my time to dedicate myself to give myself the best possible chance to be successful. I don't want to go and swim in cold water down at Dover for 6 hours every weekend for the next 6 months. I'm not willing to do that. So there's a reframe in itself. I said I could do it. I know I can swim the English Channel. Give me 9 months, 12 months and dedicated training and I'll do it. I know how, but I'm not willing to give the time. So there's that whole reframe in how you view your own possibilities. So that's where I wanted to start with that.
Okay, so with those reframed, we've now got to a point where, okay, if the goal is in sight, I can. and let's stick with it being physical, because this is all on the central governor theory. We're now, feel free to backtrack if you like. I'm going to fast forward to the point where we're now in that marathon.
Yep.
Okay. We're in that marathon, body's saying stop, or we're in that hard training block, body's saying stop. Whatever it is, body's saying stop. It's the beginnings. This is central governor. It's, the little red light is flashing. How long do you let it flash? How long do you ignore it? I say, yours was screaming at you, all the alarms were going off, literally it's like an airplane going down from day one, all those alarms are going off on the day, and you're like, okay, we'll just, once I've collapsed, we'll start again. That's the extreme end of it, where you ignore it to the point where the body shuts it down to stop you going any further, because physically it will pull the pin, ultimately. That's what we saw, right? That's what you saw. So at that point, first instances of, oh, I should stop. Central governor's made itself seen. How do you manage that now? How do you decide where your level is? How do you find your level there?
I'm smiling because I would say, and I'm just making up these numbers here, 90% of, let's call age group athletes, okay, pros are a little bit different. You can lump pros into this if you like, but I do know there's a couple of pro triathletes, cyclists, runners, swimmers out there that can push themselves to a different level. So let's say age group athletes. And I was smiling because I would say 90% of these people get to mile 20 of the marathon and it's getting difficult and they're like, oh, should I keep pushing? The red light's going, I don't really know what to do. It's too late. It's too late then. Like, this is why I'm laughing. It's hilarious because the thing is, it's too late because you're already in that moment. What you need to do is prepare for that moment before. Now, we can train 3 things in life. We can train our body, okay, running and training. We can train our craft, our job, what we do for a career, and we can train our mind. You ask most people, they'll train their body. You know, people that are watching this and listening to this, they train their body. They train their craft, okay? If they're cyclists, if they're runners, they try and become a better runner, become more efficient. They go and get a gait analysis, they go and get a bike fit, they get stroke technique. You know, if they're swimmers or triathletes, you get a coach. So you're training your craft, okay? You're training your body, maybe 5, 10, 15 hours a week. How many hours a week do you dedicate to training your mind? Like, the people that I know, you know, I'm in different circles here in the UK and in the world, and people who I train, they don't train their mind. So when the central governor is screaming at you, lights flickering, you know, and everything, all the sirens are going inside, if you haven't trained your mind, if you haven't done the mental preparation, it's too late. It's like if you're crashing in an aeroplane and all the warning systems going, you're going to crash, you're going to burn, you're going to crash. I don't have a parachute. Holy crap, how do I get out of this? Or even more so, I've not read the manual.
Well, you need to have gone through, any pilot's going to have been in a simulator. He's going to have been forced to, they're going to dunk simulators in the water. They're going to make them, whatever. All of that stuff's going to be there. Now, clearly, I'm not an expert on training pilots, but I think we can fairly safely assume that when the light goes off, it's not that he's never seen it before, even if it's the first time in the plane. So, clearly that leads us into the next one. How do you mentally train your central governor response or plan of action in advance?
Yeah, you know, we've talked about this already today, and it's, in short, it's if your why is strong enough, you'll find a how. Okay, there's a bunch of people, you know, who have massive profiles and celebrities who have said a similar quote. But if your why is strong enough, you will find a how.
As in, if the meaning and the purpose driving you to achieve the thing you want to achieve is strong enough, you will find the tools and the way to do it.
If you're trying to run a sub 4-hour marathon, and the reason why you want that 3:59:59 is so you can take a photo with that finishing medal and put it on Instagram on Monday and hashtag Medal Monday, sub 4, 3:59:59, and at mile 20 the wheels fall off and everything, I tell you what, that why is not going to be strong enough for you to dig deep and keep pushing forward. Right? That's the bottom line.
But maybe there's something beyond it, only because it reminds me of the when I finished the UTMB. In fact, no, it wasn't. It was pre-UTMB. It was CCC, and I wanted the blue gilet that you get. Literally, that got me through the last 40k of that race. I wanted to have it, but it was not just to have a blue gilet. Which is a pretty unattractive piece of clothing at the best of times. It was a deeper why as to what that meant what it meant you had gone through and achieved in order to be able to get that. 'Cause you don't just get that for signing up for the race. You don't just get that for turning up. You only get that for crossing the finish line. And that, to me, meant much more. So maybe that person who wants that picture, well, maybe if they were to look behind that, what's that? The process of 3 whys. Okay, why do you want that picture on Instagram? Why do you want it to say 3:59:59? If you can get behind that, maybe do you think there could be enough in there?
Could be. I like to think of it as a why tree. Okay, we've discussed this before. So the 3 whys, I have 3 levels. So you've got a tree, you've got leaves on a tree, right? They're your superficial whys, and I mean this in the purest sense of superficial, meaning on the surface. Okay, so initially that 3:59 could be, I want to put a post on social media, say Metal Monday, hashtag sub4, whatever. So that's your superficial why. It's flashy, it's cool, it catches your attention. But what happens when it's windy outside or the wheels fall off at mile 20, leaves fall off the tree? Okay, when there's a storm, when the central governor is yelling and screaming at you, the leaves fall off. Okay? Now, then you've got branches. And your branches might be, well, a 3:59:59 is actually a personal best for me. Okay? That's a little bit deeper than just putting a post on social media. Yeah, I want to run a personal best. I get that. That's cool. That's not just, oh, look at me, look how cool I am. Running a personal best, you've got to dig a little bit deeper because you've never done this before. But when the central governor system is yelling and screaming at you, I could do it next race. This race is a bit hilly. I got caught up at the start. You start making excuses.
I didn't sleep so well last night.
Exactly.
I think I got the wrong shoes on.
You start finding excuses for yourself, and all excuses is a justification to yourself of why you're doing the behaviour you're doing. So you're slowing down, okay? You're justifying it by making excuses. They don't help you move forward. They don't help you achieve what you want. They're just a justification to make you feel good about the behaviour you decided to choose. Now that could be your branch, why? To doing a 3:59:59 putting it on social media. What you want to spend time on though is to dig down. Dig down and understand your deep-rooted why. So the tree roots, because they take time to grow and they grow down. Because what happens when there's a big storm? The leaves get blown off, branches get broken, but if your deep-rooted whys are strong enough, that tree will stand upright through whatever storm. So when the central governor comes crushing through, and it says, no, lights flashing, all the rest of it, you can't do this, you should stop, this is doing damage. The superficial whys are gone. The branch whys, which you think are really strong, they break, they disappear.
So it's not the part that we go with the superficial ones, just go back, okay, well, I want to put this post on social media, on Monday, I go, okay, that's blown away.
Yeah.
That's now not going to support you.
Yeah.
We come down to the branch one, it's like, hey, I want to get a personal best.
100%.
Again, those branches have just been blown away. Okay, so we're going behind that, we're asking why again. So, why do I want this? Why do I want this? Keep asking why. I want it for this image on social media. Why do you want the image on social media? Because I want a personal best. So now we come down to the roots. Why do you want a personal best?
Yeah, exactly. So these are the deep-rooted whys. And they take time to understand. Okay? So maybe in your training, you're pushing yourself and you're focusing on that 3:59, the superficial why. Then you're focusing on the branch whys. Well, this is going to be my personal best, like in training. But dig down even deeper. Okay? So it's going to be individual to the person. Maybe the reason why you started running. What was the reason why you started running? Was it because you wanted to lose weight? Was it because you had self-confidence issues? Was it because some other reason? You loved running as a kid and you used to do cross country as a kid, but you stopped for 10 years. So you're going to have to go deep, and you're going to have to truly understand not why you want a 3:59.59, why you're running in the first place, why you entered that race in the first place, why you have spent all the time, effort, energy, money in preparing for the race. So as I said, at mile 20, when the central governor system is screaming at you and everything's going wrong and your mind and your body and everything's telling you to stop, in that moment, if you haven't done all this work prior, then it's pointless. So you have to actually go back to, why am I entering the race in the first place? Why am I running in the first place? So when everything goes wrong and your body's saying stop, all the warning lights are saying stop, you can then dig down and go, the reason why I'm pushing myself and how is because of the deep-rooted whys that I've come up with. And they're very personal, and they take time, because roots take time to grow. And what fuels the tree? The soil, okay? And where does the roots get that fuel source from? Okay, the roots get that fuel source.
33. The really strong, fast trees.
Exactly. So the tree gets its fuel source through the roots.
Yeah.
So they absorb it. So you've got to spend time to cultivate those roots. And when everything goes wrong, those deep-rooted whys will be your fuel source to push you past any storm, push you through any storm. They will be the driving passions. They will be the basis of the grit and determination. So Angela Duckworth, who wrote an amazing book and done a lot of research on grit, defines grit as passion and perseverance for a long-term goal.
Mm-hmm.
If you think at mile 20, when everything's going wrong, okay, I'm going to roll my sleeves up and show some grit. She's proven in science that you can't do it in that moment. You've got to do the work, the passion and perseverance for a long-term goal. So this is something that you have to have done the work on previously.
Yeah.
So
is it worth going, kind of nudging up against that central governor in training, or even, let's say, if we put it in a business context, by having those hard and painful days? Well, your reaction there is really training that muscle.
Yeah.
And learning that reaction, so that when it occurs on race day, and this is where race is different from business, because they're slightly more binary in that the race occurs on a set time, it has a set distance, and it has a set finish. But at that point, when you're back in the race, the central governor crops up. It's not a surprise.
No. So you want to grow as an individual, whether it's a runner in that race, as a business person, as an entrepreneur. You want to grow. You want to achieve things you've never achieved before. You want to change your life and create a lifestyle that you never thought was possible. Okay, let's go big here. You want to do that? You know how you get personal growth, continuous personal growth? You consciously do difficult things every single day. Get used to doing difficult things. So then when difficult things happen, if it's not that difficult, if it's on a lower scale of difficult, it doesn't even register on this is hard. You grab everyone off the street who hasn't done this work, who's lived a cushy life, they'll go, oh, that was really hard. But you have to go, no, I'm used to doing difficult stuff. I consciously make a decision to do difficult things every day. Okay? That can be from not owning a television, so you spend more time reading. Initially, that could be difficult. Having cold showers. Okay? There's loads of science out there now to say how beneficial they are for your health. Are they lovely? Are they cozy? No. Middle of winter in London, cold showers suck.
Yeah, you have to be careful with that one. And certainly Eric and I, we've been doing the cold shower finish for a couple of years now. Wherever we've been in the world, we've always done it. And it's a very simple thing when you get used to it. But there are a lot of people who, you just covered the point there, who will recommend this, and you realise that in some cases, well, they live in California. And that's fine, it's still a cold shower, but a cold shower in California is probably quite nice. It's not quite the same as a cold shower in Northern Europe in January at 6 a.m. So,
but it's the concept of consciously doing difficult things daily. And that can be...
And they can be small difficult things.
They can be small difficult things.
It's not hard to turn that tap to cold for a minute.
Yeah. Take the stairs, not the elevator. It's these things, choosing the difficult path. So then, when you find yourself on a difficult path, you potentially have the tools to help you overcome it, or you're used to it to a degree, which is why it's important to do this work prior to when the central government system yells and screams at you. You know, I talk about visualization. I think it's very important to visualize you seeing where you want to go, you seeing where you want to be. You know, people in business, I know you've done this with 33 Shake. You have your 5-year plan, your 1-year plan, your quarterly plan, your monthly plan, your weekly plan.
You have to visualize this stuff, and you have to jot it down, because without that, without a destination, you can't get anywhere.
Yeah, but the flip side is I visualize negative stuff. I do negative visualization. Now, loads of people have called me out on this. Loads of people have questioned this. You shouldn't do that. You know, you should be thinking about positive. Don't be negative. And it's like, no, you don't get it. The reason why I do negative visualization as well as positive, I do a sandwich. I do positive visualization, negative, and then positive. The reason why I do negative visualization is to create a process. Create a process for me to go through to overcome that obstacle.
Well, as an example, didn't you do visualizations ahead of the Ultimate Triathlon? Or, for example, I'm swimming the Gibraltar Strait and there is a shark. Yep. I don't know if there even are sharks in the Gibraltar Strait, or there is a tanker coming across, because that's a busy shipping lane. Yep. Or it is rough, or I swim through a patch of diesel, or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I've only said this on 1 or 2 podcasts, but there was a few times when I was filling up my car's engine at a petrol station in the lead up to the Ultimate Triathlon, and the Gibraltar Strait is 10 miles wide at its narrowest point, and it's one of the busiest shipping lanes in the world. And these tankers are huge, you know. And you could be swimming through diesel. They're coming into a port close by. They're dumping some fuel, okay, and I could be swimming through this fuel. So there were several times that I sniffed the petrol a little bit to get a sense of what it smells like. Then you know what?
I thought for a minute you were actually going to say, I would drink a little bit.
But then I got that smell into my mind, and then I would visualize, what if I swam through diesel? What if I swallowed some? What would I do? Okay? And I created a process in my mind. Same thing with a shark. I literally visualized what I would do if I saw a shark. And I went even deeper. What if a shark bit my leg off? I created a process in my mind. Same with cycling. What would I do if you guys, the crew, were up the road, not with me, and on one of the busy roads, I got hit by a car? I got hit by a car, I got thrown over the guardrail. I went through a process. Okay? Am I conscious? I'm conscious. Okay? And anything broken? Am I bleeding? Do I have head injuries? And I went through this whole process. Okay? Is there a wound? Yes. Do I need to strap it up to stop the bleeding? Is there blood coming out of somewhere? You know? Okay, now that's all done. Can I get to my phone? Can I call my crew? If not, can I wave down a car? I remember this because this is the process I went through. Not because I wanted to be morbid, but because I trained my mind. I wanted to be prepared mentally. And I visualized this stuff. So if it did happen, it wouldn't be a case of like, I convinced myself that I would be totally cool and calm, and if a shark bit my leg off, I went through the process of, you know, keeping one eye on the shark and trying to get the crew in and trying to punch it if it came back for me, keeping my other leg tucked up. You know, it wasn't like this was going to be really simple, but I had a higher chance of being successful to keep my anxiety low, keep my stress levels low, and stay calm in that moment when maybe my central governance system was telling me, no, all's wrong here, let's stop here, let's freaking out, this is all wrong, the body shouldn't be like this. I had a better chance to stay calm and cool, and it's about creating that process of doing difficult things daily to create your own process of how you approach them, how you start them, and how you push yourself through them to the end. And for me, the negative visualization, which I top and tailed with positive, but I kept the negative in the middle, was to create a process of if something went wrong, in that big moment, my race, the Ultimate Triathlon, your business meeting, your pitch for funding, I had a process to help me through that negative outcome that happened.
Yeah. So just because I know you've got to go fairly shortly, so the thing I want to finish up on is you talk about, you know, the big driver behind managing and dealing with and overcoming with, to whatever degree you want to, the central government system is having this motivation and this why. Now, the degree to which you overrode the central government was beyond anything I'd ever experienced or come across, I say, whether as a journalist in professional sport or as an athlete or working with athletes. Just not seen that level anywhere before or since. What was the why that allowed you to take it that far? Do you even know exactly what it is? I'm sure in your gut the whole thing must be completely there, but is it something you've ever been able to define? The book goes into.
I was going to say, I could be really cheeky and say, go and buy my book and you'll find out. And then
I get it's probably it's not a simple bullet point answer. And I get we don't have an hour to unpick the whole thing either, but
Yeah. So what was my why for the ultimate triathlon? I have loads of superficial whys. I have many branches, that make up the why tree to the ultimate triathlon. The deep-rooted whys, and I come back to this, and I think this is really the thing that was driving me forward, is because I had a chip on my shoulder from used to be a professional footballer, okay, and my career ended at 28. I never played any at big first division clubs, played in lower league clubs, and I had this chip on my shoulder that I didn't feel like I achieved my potential as an athlete, okay, so one of the deep-rooted whys was this, and this chip was the size of the planet. It was this. I had Earth on my shoulder. That was the size of the chip, right? And I really felt like I had treated my body throughout my entire professional career like a temple. I had done all the physical, psychological work. I sacrificed my teenage years. I left my home at 16. I left Australia.
You just leave your home. You left the country.
I left the country at 21. I left my family home at 16. The country at 21. Didn't know anyone. Bounced around the world. Living off nothing for long periods of time. Sleeping wherever I could. Strangers, houses, friends of friends of friends, distant relatives. Eating whatever I could to achieve this dream. And I played professional for several years, but I felt like I didn't fulfill my potential. So this chip was there that I'd done everything that utmost professional could do, and my body let me down. So I was pissed. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to push you as hard as I can, because I don't care if you break. You're going to listen to me, my mind, pointing to my head. Because I've been working on strengthening my mind ever since I was a 15-year-old kid, when I started to work with sports psychologists as an elite junior soccer player in Australia, football player in Australia. So I've continually trained my mind. So I've done this. All the stuff I've been talking about the last 45 minutes, I've been doing since 15 years of age. I find the mind fascinating, and I've always thought we can do more. Sprint training. Okay, we're going to do 10. I would do 10 and say, Coach, let's do one more. All the teammates hated me because Luke was like, shut up. You always said to do one more. I was like, yeah, but this is where the other team's not. So this is me as a teenager. This is how I thought. Part of it is how I was brought up and how I was wired. So I did all of this stuff as an athlete, as a soccer player, and I had this chip on my shoulder. So I was willing to push myself physically because I knew my mind was strong. And I didn't care what my body said because I had this massive chip on my shoulder. So that was pushing me forward. The other one was, I was escaping from life. Okay, I retired at 28, and it was about 4 years later when I did the ultimate triathlon. Okay, and I was battling with my mental health. I was battling with depression, something I didn't speak about. During the ultimate triathlon, a bit prior, I started to open up a little bit. You're one of my closest mates. And I'm very open with you about a lot of things, but even you had no idea what I was going through.
No, I mean, there was a lot that came out in the book.
Yeah, and no one knew what I was going through. My parents, my wife didn't know what I was going through. I was binge eating, So I went through that. I was having suicidal thoughts. I was standing on top of bridges, thinking, I don't want to be here anymore. This is like a couple of months. This is a month before the ultimate triathlon. We've been mates for several years. I hadn't spoken about this to anyone.
Yeah, I never knew about that depth at all.
So I was running away from life. And when you're running away from your mental health, your depression, binge eating, when you're an advocate for eating healthy, when you've ate healthy your entire life, but then you're binge eating crappy foods, or even binge eating healthy foods. Like I ate a kilo of almonds one day just because I wanted to do this hand to mouth thing and make me feel good. Try eating a kilo of almonds is hard. Eating a kilo of ice cream is probably a lot easier.
I think it is. I think the ice cream probably comes out easier.
Yeah. So I was running away from life. I was running away from all of this, plus having a chip on my shoulder that I didn't feel like I achieved the heights that I wanted to achieve as an athlete, as a footballer. So right now, sitting here, that's my deep-rooted whys for the ultimate triathlon, to continually to push myself. I was running away from all my life that I was going through. I still was a bit confused in the path that I wanted to lead the rest of my life. You know, I was only 32 when I did the ultimate triathlon, 33, and also this chip on my shoulder as well. So I think deep down they were my deep-rooted whys as to how I was able to continually push myself when my central governor, when my body, when you guys were telling me to stop.
Yeah, and that does make sense that's so far beyond, I want a PB, I want to complete a challenge, I want to do this. That is layers and layers beyond. And I like the point you made that it wasn't just one coating of leaves and multiple leaves. It wasn't just one branch wide and multiple branches. But when you come down into the roots, there are many of them, and they're all big, and that might just be enough. Well, it obviously was enough in your case, and I think maybe certainly let's do another one of these, because all that we can say now, and I say I don't want to run now because I know you're short on time, but the price that exacted upon your mind, your mental well-being, and your body over the next 2 and 3 years was significant. But you covered that off very nicely at the beginning, saying I'm not recommending this, I'm not saying it's healthy, I'm not saying people should do what I do, but you've been deeper into that dark hole than pretty much anyone I can imagine. I'm sure there are other athletes out there who have gone to that same depth, but there'll be very, very few and far between. And so to have come out of that and brought those experiences out is hugely valuable. So just to tie us up, and like I say, I think we should definitely do another one on this to go down on the further on the mental side and stuff. You got 2 spoons tattooed on your wrist there, Luke. Anyone on the podcast, Luke is holding that up. He has 2 spoons tattooed on the underside of his right wrist. Let's just finish on that note, Luke. Why do you have 2 spoons tattooed on your wrist?
So we've got to go back. We've got to go back to the ultimate triathlon. Let's call it start of day 4, maybe.
Well, let's just say it was deep enough in that things were really starting to bite.
So
day 4 or 5.
My girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife, the lovely Vanda, she would get me prepared every morning. She would basically put clothes on me and feed me. And I got up one morning, late night, and I said to her, and I was like, "Have you got 3 spoons?" And I was having breakfast, getting breakfast ready. I just said to her, "Can I have 3 spoons?" Literally a minute later, she turns around, taps me on the shoulder, and gives me 3 spoons out of the kitchen cupboard, the kitchen tub that we had. And literally, it was like a minute after I asked her, and I turned around at Vanda and I said, "What are you giving me these for?" And she's just like, "You just asked for them." And I was like, "No, I didn't." 1 minute, I'd forgotten 3 spoons. So
didn't even know what he wanted 3 spoons for. This is sleep deprivation, delirium, exhaustion. And you were well advanced down that path, but the crew were only a few steps behind on the mental exhaustion.
For sure. So where 3 spoons came about was we sort of then took 3 spoons as a moniker for pushing yourself to your limits and then beyond, going past what your perceived limits were. So that was 3 spoons. after the ultimate triathlon, we would joke about if someone did something really big, someone did something great, we would say, oh, that's 3 spoons.
And as an example, when Eric and myself first toured across the US, we went over there, we bought a car, we loaded it with product, we literally went hammered on doors, slept on couches. We took our products as we launched them in the US to everybody over 2-3 months driving across that country. Luke and Vanda gifted us a spoon that we hung that spoon on the rear view mirror of the car, and we saw that every day. 3 spoons, it's written on it.
So to go back to my 2 spoons on my wrist here, on the inside of my wrist, my wife and I, well actually no, before she was my wife, we knew that we were a perfect fit for one another. Everyone who met her for the first time just went, you're an idiot if you don't keep this one.
Yeah.
And we all knew this, and she's extremely supportive without me getting too gushy. And I thought our life together is more than 3 spoons. You know, it's we've evolved together, we help each other out so much, we are the yin to our yang to one another and all this stuff. So I proposed to Vanda, not with the diamond engagement ring like everyone else. I don't do things like everyone else. I proposed to Vanda with 4 spoons. And it was to symbolise the fact that us together, we elevate one another and us as a couple above the 3 spoons limit of what we created in the Ultimate Triathlon to then 4 spoons. So a couple of months ago when we were in Australia together, I don't know who, I think it was Vanda, who's a big fan of tattoos. She's got a whole sleeve and a bunch of other tattoos over her body. She said, oh, what about getting like spoons tattooed on us? And I was just like, yeah, sure. So, well, why don't we get 4 spoons, because there's a whole thing between us together. And we said, well, let's get 2 each. So I have 2 spoons on the inside of my right wrist. She has 2 spoons on the inside of her left wrist. So when we're together, it's 4 spoons, and we're a dominant force.
And that is it. I couldn't end on a bigger high than that, so I'm just going to shut up. I mean, Luke Tyburski, thank you for coming in. Thank you for being you. Thank Vanda for putting you back together and being the 4 spoons to your 2 spoons. Mate, always a pleasure, and let's just keep on doing more of this. Thanks for coming in.
Thanks, mate. Absolute pleasure to have a chat with you and actually get it on camera this time, because this is exactly what our chats are like.
So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That was Mr. Luke Tyburski. If you didn't know him before, you certainly do now. You can find out more about him at luketyburski.com, and Tyburski is Tyburski. Hope you've enjoyed the show. As ever, please do send us your feedback and your comments. You'll find us all over social media, or on email, or in the comments section below. All of our social media links are in the show notes you'll see down there under the screen. On top of that, if you are looking for the very best nutrition for your next challenges, well, why not check us out? You'll find us at 33shake.com. Until next time, see you later.